can use your, thank you, Margaret, I appreciate it. Just makes it easier for me. I'm going to explain the difference between right sizing and downsizing. Does anybody have any idea before I get started that wants to share? Okay, well then I'm going to tell you. So right sizing is the process of understanding how you live in your home, uncluttering your life, and then moving to a new space, often smaller than your previous one, in which you can fully utilize each room. While household sizes have been shrinking over the past several decades, the square footage of homes has been increasing. Surprisingly, in the 21st century, only about 30% of a home space is used 90% of the time. The majority of the time Americans spend in their homes is in one of three rooms. Can you guys guess which rooms those are? Okay, well, I'll tell you. The kitchen, the family room, the bedroom, of course, the bathroom, but you know. And then what is the difference between right sizing and downsizing? Downsizing often has negative connotations attached to it, as people tend to think of downsizing as less square footage and as a limitation, where right sizing is the pursuit of living big in a smaller space by creating the most out of all of the square footage. So I wanted to explain why I called it right sizing and not downsizing. And then I also am going to be talking a lot about decluttering. And decluttering is the process of sorting through your belongings and removing items that you no longer need, use, or love. It's about simplifying your space and making room for the things that truly matter. And I also want to talk about organizing, because that's going to be part of this conversation too. And organization is really about being able to find what you need when you need it. And not everybody is meant to live in a Pottery Barn catalog. We don't all have spaces that look like that. And that's not going to work for everybody. So we're really going to talk a lot about all of this today. So the first slide for you, and this is where I appreciate reactions. Okay. Oh, nope, it skipped. Okay, there we go. Sorry, technical difficulties, but I will figure it out as we go. So I see Margaret laughing. Thank you, Margaret. That's the typical reaction when this goes up. And I have been giving this talk for years. And I want to tell you that letting your family deal with your stuff is the absolute worst solution. And I'm going to get into why that is the case. And then I normally would start the conversation if I said to all of you, and I don't know if you know how to use your reaction screen, but if I said, okay, you're leaving San Diego, next week, how many of your family would take everything that you didn't take? They'd say, yes, I want all your stuff. Okay, well, I am not seeing any reactions. I see a laugh. Thank you. So yes, that's pretty typical. And that is why we're here today. So let me tell you what we're going to cover. Oh, wait. Sorry. Okay. So the introduction, I want to share what senior move management is, what the impact of clutter is on your health, the strategies for organizing, decluttering, gaining some momentum. If a move is in your future, what are the resources available for unused items, goal setting, and then I will have a 6-month guide to downsizing, which I can send by email. So I want to give you an overview, and then you'll actually have a strategy you can implement. So, again, why are you holding on to things? So since it's not as interactive as a live talk would be, I'm going to give you the normal questions that I ask, and you'll kind of get a sense for why most people are holding on to things. So normally I would say, raise your hand if this resonates with you. I paid a lot for it when I bought it. I believe it's worth a lot of money. Oh, I see. Oh, 2 participants raised hand. I believe it's worth a lot of money. Okay. Holding on to it for family. I am the family historian. Okay. If I fix it, it might be worth something, or I might use it. No one raised. Oh, okay. So here's the punchline to that. We all had at least 6 months in our house while we were in quarantine. And if you didn't fix it or use it, you're probably not going to. That was your opportunity. I have a strong memory attached to it. Okay. I feel guilty throwing it away. All right. It reminds me of someone. And lastly, I am overwhelmed. Anybody overwhelmed? Because that is pretty typical of what I hear when I go out and give these talks. Okay, very, very common. So hopefully after today, you will not be overwhelmed. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about who I am, which I think makes this more interesting. So as it was shared in my bio, I am a member of the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Management Company, but it's also funny because I'm a member of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals and the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. So I actually have a family history of ADHD. And in this photo, you're going to see a couple different things that tells you a little bit about who I am and the relationships that I have in my life, so that I'm not just some organizer talking to you about how easy it is to be organized, because I understand that that is not the case. So the center picture is actually a picture that I took of my mom's place. I was visiting her in Florida in January. I am her only child. And my mom has had a stuff problem since I can remember. And it wasn't until I learned about hoarding disorder and ADHD that I realized that this is something that my mom cannot help. And you can actually see in the far left picture, that is a picture of my oldest daughter's room when she was a teenager before she left for college. And that would have looked like my room if you had taken a picture of my room in high school. So there are people who struggle with disorganization, whether for whatever that reason is, but I understand it. I understand it as a mother, I understand it as a daughter, and I understand it as someone who struggled with it and conquered it. So that's what makes me a little more unique. I'm also incredibly sentimental. If you look at the picture on the bottom left, you'll see when I went through my own belongings, I moved from Florida to California. And I had some sentimental bins and things that I had kept, and I went through those bins, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we share who we are with our family. But none of my kids wanted those things, but it was very hard to let go of those things. So I'm really sentimental. And then the far right side is, I say in most relationships, there's a piler and there's a filer, meaning that one person likes to accumulate and one person is like, I've had it. So I am actually, in my relationship, I am the filer. The nightstand on the bottom is mine, and the one on top of it is actually my boyfriend's nightstand. So I deal with a lot of people and a lot of stuff. And it's funny because a lot of times people will come up to me after a talk and ask me what they can do. And I'm not a therapist. But I definitely tell people that you need to pick your battles. And for me, having a lot of stuff causes a lot of mental distress. And so I do better in a calm environment that doesn't have a lot of stuff. So for me, there are certain rooms that have to be clean, like my kitchen. My side of the room needs to be clean, but there are other rooms where I'm okay with letting go. My closet's a mess, but my family room is super organized. So we're going to talk a little bit about, organizing to your tolerance level. Am I going at an okay pace? I'm going to see, I don't know, is there somebody that moderates the chat? Oh, I see you do. I see a couple questions. So is it genetic? My whole family has this problem. Actually, Deborah, from what I am discovering, yes, chronic disorganization often runs with ADHD, and I do a whole talk on that. And I'm getting a special certification because I didn't even know that I had ADHD until my oldest child was diagnosed when I was 47. And it wasn't until this year that I was like, ding, 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 my mom has ADHD. And I think we're going to see a lot of people who have it in their families realize that it isn't just the kids, it's also the parents and the grandparents. And then this says, mine to some degree, photos of night. Okay, my snow clutter. Okay, like I said, it's pretty common to find the piler and the filer in most relationships. All right, so that's a little bit about who I am. And then I always like to ask if you could give me a show of hands if you've ever heard of Senior Move Management before, because this is my company. So I see one hand is up. Okay. So only one person has heard of Senior Move Management. That is, wow. Okay. So it's an emerging industry, and how it started was when seniors were moving out of their homes and either going to communities or moving to be closer to family, or they were downsizing into smaller, easier to maintain homes. They were overwhelmed because typically when we move, we're upsizing, we're going to a bigger space, and we're not having to get rid of a lot of things. But we also, as we age, we have more physical challenges. Like I can't do this presentation without glasses. And we age, and there are just things that we're not able to do. So as you get older, it might be important to hire help to do those things. So then the industry started about 25 years ago. And then people started to look around and think, well, I'm not a senior, but I hate moving. Because a show of hands, how many of you have moved and like it? One person likes moving. Wow, I don't usually even get the one hand. I actually don't mind it either, but most people don't. They say that it's one of life's top stressors. And I often say to people, would you rather take a vacation or move? Because, you have to take time out of your day and it's a big process. So I actually, when I go around and introduce my company, and you can see it in the picture on the right, I carry a magic wand. And that's because our tagline is we make moves magical, or making moves magical, because let me show you what it is that we do. So when we help somebody move, the first thing that we do is we create a floor plan so we can tell accurately what is going to fit in their new home. We arrange all the logistics of the move. We sort through belongings and help determine what's going to be kept and then what's going to happen with what isn't going to be kept. We're going to talk about that today. Then we also pack, unpack, organize, and decorate. And one of the things that makes us unique is that we partner with local realtors, and all of those realtors will provide our company's services when they sell the home, so we can make introductions to those realtors. So let me go on to the next part of what move management is. So what is it that happens with all of the things that aren't kept? Well, one of the things that a lot of people want to do is to sell. Often people will say, I want to do an estate sale. So I'm going to cover an estate sale for you right now, because it seems to be the biggest thing that people don't understand. If you probably have noticed, it's getting harder and harder to sell your belongings in San Diego. I think a lot of that really started to get much worse during COVID, because during COVID, what I found was that people either accumulated or they purged or they left San Diego. And so what happened was all of these donation sites that were shut down for quite a while then became inundated with stuff. So they want to take the cream of the crop. The other thing about, so that it became harder to sell and harder to get rid of the things that we didn't want. Part of it is that we don't have the same market for it. I'm going to talk about that as we go on, but I want to cover estate sales for you. So we often, almost every time we do a move for a client, the first thing they say is, I want to have an estate sale. Well, not everybody can have an estate sale. The way that estate sale companies traditionally work is that they want to have about a month leeway of time from the time that they're going to meet with you until they can conduct the sale. Usually it takes them a week to prep that sale, which means that they want to make sure that they're going to be able to make about $10,000, because what they're going to do is they're going to do it on a commission basis, which is usually 40 to 60%. So you need to have a month leeway. You need to have about $10,000 worth of things in your home. And you might think it's worth $10,000, but that doesn't mean that that's what the general population is going to think. And then, so if they're going to invest their time and their money into your estate sale, that's going to be maybe the only estate sale they do. So they're picking the cream of the crop. They also want to make sure that you have good traffic, that they can have, people that do the drive-bys and can come in. And you can't live in a deed restricted community, and you can't live in a condominium or a place where you've got to have an elevator or there's not good parking. And then the other thing you want to make sure that you're looking at when you're looking into an estate sale is reading the fine print, because a lot of times they want to guarantee that they're going to make a certain amount of money on that sale. So what they'll say is, we're going to take like the first X thousands of dollars first, and then you'll get your split. So just make sure that that's not the way, that it's going to work for you. So what we do, just to kind of put it together, when we're helping a client, is we'll assess what they have in their home that's of value. We had a client that didn't even know they had a $15,000 painting, and we were able to pull that out, and we pull up anything that's out of the home that we think we're going to get a lot more money for, and we're going to broker that sale for our clients. And then we're going to help, if we can do an estate sale, we'll refer you to an estate sale company. We also can help with some of the online apps. If you have some things that are nice that can be sold, we can arrange donations. And then a lot of people don't know about liquidation. So I am going to assume that there are a lot of people on this call that don't. So I'm going to explain that to you. So how a liquidation and a buyout is the same thing, but it's just, we just use different words. So what we do with a client is we pull the items that are of value out first. And then of course, this is after we've tagged the things we know that our clients are keeping, and then we've arranged to ship, or we've marked the things that are going to be going to specific family members, or maybe a donation site that you definitely, that's a cause that's important to you and you want to make sure that they get it. Like some people want to send their old towels to, the Humane Society, that kind of thing. Then what we do is we bring in a liquidation or / buyout company, and they come in and they look at your house and they assess everything that's going to remain. And that's going to include what they think they can sell. And what they're going to do is they're going to start tallying, okay, I think I can sell this and I'll make about this much money. I think I can sell this, I can sell this. And then they're going to look at everything else that is going to be cleared out. And that's going to be the garbage and the things that you don't want and the stuff that, really isn't going to be saleable. And they're going to come to you with either an amount of money that, hey, I'm going to offer you $1,000 and I'm going to clear out your house, or sometimes you'll have to pay them. But that's still a better option for you than if you were to work with a hauler, because what a hauler is going to do, a hauler is going to just pretty much take everything and they're going to dump it. And then there's going to be a dump fee, and there is nothing to offset that cost. And also, personally, I don't like the idea of things going into the landfill. One of our core values of a company is green. So what we want is we want our liquidators who will do as much as they can to keep things out of the landfill, including they'll take things down to Tijuana, which we're really lucky that we have that luxury being so close to the border. So I just like to explain that because it's something that a lot of people don't even know exists. And we do try to make the clear out of a home easy. All right. Any questions so far? I'm going to check the chat because I don't see anything in the chat. So I'm going to keep moving and assume that there are no questions. Okay. So in addition to move management, we also provide garage and storage organizing. A lot of people are renting offsite storage and spending a lot of money because they don't want to deal with it, and it's just deferred maintenance. And we're able to go in, inventory what's there, ship out what needs to be shipped, and sell what can be sold. And then again, we'll deal with a clear out. I like to also talk a little bit about garages because there's some interesting facts. They say that disorganization, not lack of space, causes 80% of household clutter, and the majority of that clutter is in garages. In fact, the statistics are that 25% of people with 2-car garages don't park in them at all, and a third can only park 1 car. So we are definitely using our garages as our storage. And so there we go. The other thing that I think is really cool that we offer is photo digitization and organization. And I don't have a lot of time to touch on that, but I do want to share why it's really important that you need to digitize your photos. So the next slide, this was just to give you an example. This was a client that we had that had photos all over her home. They were everywhere, books and books of them. They were really important to her. So when we moved her into a senior community, we created 2 family trees. One was of her ancestors and one was of her descendants. And then we took every single photo that she had in every book and we digitized it so that we put it on one of those digital slides so that she could see every photo in her home. And then all of the family members got that backed up. But if you don't digitize those photos, those old ones, they're going to disintegrate. They were printed on different paper than we now print photos on, and it's really important that you back those up. And if it's a photo, and again, I do a whole talk on photo organizing, so if you want to have me back for that, I'm happy to come. But I just want to give you a quick pointer that if you just want to share a picture with your loved ones on the internet or on social media, and you're not planning to print it, you can use your smartphone to take a picture of it. And the other big highlight is that you do not have to organize everything chronologically. I always tell people, perfect is the enemy of done. Just get it done. You can just do it by category and get it off your plate. So I never want to not mention photo organizing, because photos are one of the things that people say they would grab in a fire, yet we stick them in boxes, we put them in our garage, and we don't take care of them. So why is it important to get organized? All right. Well, I sort of talked about organizing already, which is that being able to find what you want when you want it. Ben Franklin has a quote, which I love. He says, for every minute spent organizing, an hour is earned. So your life just runs more efficiently when you're organized. Okay, and then there's some impacts of clutter. I sort of shared with you all my personal story, which is that I have brain fog. If I see too much around me, it's going to flood me. But there are also health effects, not just the obvious, which is the dust, that causes the allergies and the tripping hazards, but also we're more stressed out when we're around clutter, and that raises our cortisol, and the cortisol makes us gain weight. So there have been studies that 3/4 of people who live in a lot of clutter are more likely to be overweight. So it's a really good reason to declutter, whether right sizing and moving is your goal, or you just want to organize and get things done. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of incentive of why it's important. Okay. I need to take a sip of water. Sorry, just bear with me for a sec. Okay. So efficient organizing contributes to increased productivity, as everything has its designated place, saving time and energy. How many of you have ever had to, just show of hands, had to run out and buy something that you knew you had, but you couldn't find it? Anybody? Okay. All right. Yeah. And we find when we gather things together and we give it a home, it's a money saver. So the other thing is that having an organized living space creates a harmonious atmosphere, which positively influences your mood and creates a welcoming ambiance. All right, so it's really important to get clear on your why. Show of hands, do you guys remember Peter Wall? She was an organizer that used to be on the Rachel Ray show and the Oprah Winfrey show, and he would do those home makeovers. Okay, I see a raised hand. So I love how he described when he would do a space. He said when he would do a family's home, when he would have children walk into the room, because you know how the parents are usually disorganized, you're going to see that with the kids too. He said that whenever he would do a child's space, their reaction when they came into the room for the first time, every single time, he said there was never a child that didn't have the same reaction, was to dance. And that just really hit me hard. Like, wow, like there's a reason that we want to be clutter free. But it's also important, if you're taking this on, that you have your why. I don't know about any of you, but I've gone to a couple of reunions or weddings where they were my incentive for losing weight. Anybody else? Nobody? I'm the only one that needs those kind of goals. Okay. Well, knowing your why before you start, thank you, Ronice. I appreciate it. Knowing your why really helps the process. We have a client now that wants to host a dinner party in their home in August and is super cluttered. And so what we've done is we've come up with a plan for what can we do to get her to the point where she can host this dinner party. And so that is going to keep her motivated and moving forward. How do you want to feel in your home? What area is causing you the most stress? And then, we'll go from there. Okay. So let me give you some tips and trends. So there is a woman named Dana K. White, and what she talks about is that not everybody is meant to be organized, but what we can do is declutter to our tolerance level. And what that means is And I'm going to give you how to do that. And I like this. So she said that you start with a visible area because you want to see your impact. So you're not going to want to go to a closet or a bathroom. You want to start with a family room or a kitchen or something that you're going to feel really good as soon as you've done it. So what you want to do is you grab a black trash bag and you're going to throw away the obvious trash. And then the next step is that you put anything away that already has an established home. And we definitely all have places for certain things. Like I always put my toothbrush in the toothbrush holder next to my sink. That's an obvious place and this is an established home. And then you want to do your donations, which is making a box or a basket that is going to, the whole box or basket needs to go as well. And you put anything that is a clear donation into that box. And I do want to tell you that a lot of people think you cannot donate stained clothing, but that is actually not true. What they will do is they will use those scraps and they will repurpose them for other things, whether it is lining that goes, filling that goes into furniture or whatever. But don't be afraid to donate the bad stuff. But I also want to caution you to donate the good stuff too. When you're going through your home and if you are living in a lot of clutter, sometimes it's better to think of a needy person benefiting from what you have versus the money that you could make. Because the reality is in our market anyway, you might make 1/10 of the value. Sometimes it's just better for your mental health and better, I say, for the universe to just go ahead and put those donations out there. And the other thing I will tell you is that it's very important if you're going to start this process is to pick a date and usually a week in advance and make a call to schedule a donation pickup. And I'm going to have a resource for you at the end that is places that will come and do a pickup. And now if maybe one of those charities will resonate with you, great. If not, then put it on your calendar to take it away. Because I'd love to see a show of hands. How many of you have ever gathered donations together and then they sat in a corner in your house or they sat in your car? Thank you. I appreciate you, Bernice. Thank you. Thank you. Here come the hands. It's like pledges, right? So you know what I'm talking about with that. So you want to make sure that you've actioned those donations. And then the next thing that you're going to do is if I needed this item, where would I first go? And that you're going to put that away instinctively. Just go right now. And now keep in mind, this method is going to be different from the next method. So whatever method I give you, it's got to be a method that works for you. And then the next thing when you're decluttering is if I needed this, would it even occur to me that I had it? If you wouldn't even remember that you had it, maybe you don't need to keep it. Or maybe you need to put it in a place that you're going to remember that you have it. So that is decluttering to your tolerance level. Let me go on to the next one. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about feng shui. I actually took a feng shui class a week ago, and I learned a lot that I didn't know and actually implemented it in my own home office, and it has made such a difference. So what the rules of feng shui is that it's easier to feel relaxed in a clean, organized home. And feng shui teaches that energy must be able to move and flow freely through the home. And what she basically says is you do not want the clutter. The clutter will stop you. And if you have clutter, she recommends that you cover the clutter. So I will tell you that in my office, for instance, your desk is actually supposed to face a door. Mine was facing a wall. And she says that what you need to do is you need to be welcoming the abundance that will come. And working facing a wall for me, it was a stopper, and there's a lot more that I've got on that, and I don't have a lot of time to get into it. But if you want to look into feng shui, the one tip a couple tips I'll tell you if you don't have time to do it now is you want your desk to face a door, and you also want your bed to face a door. What she says that you want to do when you're doing feng shui is you need to stick to one area and complete it during the day. She said, don't do it at night because it's just better energy to doing it during the day. And she said that if you don't complete it, then it'll just become a bigger problem. And this is another thing I had never heard, that you're supposed to use lavender scented air mist when you do feng shui. But I will tell you, I did it last week and I have loved it. Okay. All right, so I'm just checking the chat as I'm going, and then I'll go to the next slide. Okay, So here are a couple of other techniques that you can use. One is, how many of you guys have heard of the magic art of tidying up? She had a TV show. I see some hands. Okay, great. So that's the Marie Kondo method. And these, since you all have internet access, I'm not going to go too much into this, but these are all things you can look up online. But what she also says is that it's a Shinto, it's based on Shinto beliefs, that you imagine your ideal lifestyle before you start the process. So we're going back to what's your goal. You gather like items together, and you do clothing, books, paper, and everyone will tell you, if you're going to do home organizing, you start with you end with sentimental, because what will happen if you start reading those old letters and those yearbooks, you're going to get stuck going down memory lane. So we want to save that as the cherry on top, or the reward. So you're going to do sentimental last. But anyway, you're supposed to pick the item up. I'm going to give you a good example and say, does this item spark joy? So these are jeans. You can't see me because I'm on Zoom, but these are a size 2 jeans that I fit into 5 years ago. I'm now wearing size 8, size 10. So when I see these jeans, they do not spark joy. They make me feel disappointed. So, that's a good example of this goes away because it doesn't make me feel good. So when you pick something up, does it make you keep those things? If they make you feel bad and they make you feel bad about yourself, then those are things that you want to give away. And that includes things that were given to you by family members that you don't even like. Sometimes we hold on to it out of guilt. Let it go, as they say in the song from Frozen. And then what you're supposed to do is thank it for serving you. And then the other one that we recommend that you use are the 4 box methods. We actually use stickers, which you can see in that photo. I thought I put some stickers on the table before I started. Oh, I did. Here you go. So we use these, and you can go into a room and you can designate the stickers to mean different things. And that will also give you some momentum and a way to get started. Another techniques is to do, some people say go room by room. Some people do, like we did with well, you're going to hear about it in the trash bag tango in a minute. So I'm going to wait. I am a big fan of storage solutions using bins and labels. As I shared, I do have ADHD. And so sometimes I have a problem with, like, for instance, an example of, I make something for dinner and I have leftovers. I have a hard time judging the size of the container that I should use. That's just, my brain doesn't work that way. So when you give me bins and labels, I can put it back and it makes it much easier. So that will definitely help. And as I shared with you, sentimental always goes last. And I thought that it's going to be in another slide, the trash bag tango, because I definitely want to share that one with you. It's been the most popular one. So getting the yes. So, okay, show of hands, back to this question. If I told you to tell your family that you're leaving San Diego, you're leaving everything behind, how many of your family members, raise your hand if they would take your stuff? Any of your stuff, really? Okay, do you all see that there are no hands that went up? That's pretty common. So I'm going to give you some suggestions for getting the yes from your family. This is what I did, and it worked very well. It was Mother's Day, and I told my kids that I was going to do a show and tell with them, and that they needed to plan to be available for me, because you can use your birthday, and I give them a day in advance, or, not a day in advance, but give them a time in advance, and then tell them it's a gift that they're going to give to you. And it was really important for me to be able to share the things that I had held on to, like my Girl Scout sash and my prom corsage. I wanted them to hear my stories, and it wasn't so much about the item as we want to be remembered. So I did some show and tells. And did they want some of those things? No, but I'm going to give you some other ideas. So another good one is to do a Swedish death cleaning. That's when I told you guys that I went home to see my mom, I basically had a conversation. I'm her only child. I said, Mom, when you pass, I am not going to be able to take everything that's in your house with you, that's here with me, back to California, and I don't even know what's important. So Swedish death cleaning is about going through your own belongings and proactively cleaning it out. I don't know how many of you, but this is where the movement started, where you had to do this for a family member, where you had to clear out their things, and you thought, I am not going to do this to someone that I love. It's also really important to discuss and determine a plan and let people know who is going to get what. When my grandmother passed away, I was her only grandchild. There was a lamp that I loved, and she'd always promised me that it was going to be mine. When she passed, she had not had that conversation with my mom and uncle, and they gave it to a cousin. I fought for it. I did get it back, but it was not pretty. And, they say weddings and funerals bring out the worst in people, and that's true. So the legacy list is something that I recommend to get the yes. And that is that you identify 5 to 10 items that are really significant to you, to your family's legacy, to your story, and you want to document those things. There's a great site you can use called Artifacts, and it's going to be on the handout that I am able to provide at the end. ARTIFCTS, so it's missing that last A.com. And you can actually, I think you can do 10 items for free, and you'll get a QR code, and you can preserve those items. You can tell the stories by video, you can write the stories, or you can do audio, and it will capture the description of those stories and preserve them. But if you share the most important things and why they're important, and they understand that story, they're more likely going to give you a yes. And I want to remind you too, like, we grew up very differently than people are living now. And just as an example, how many of you grew up having, a nice dinner around the dining room table where there was china and crystal, and there was usually there was a china hutch that stored everything. And we're not seeing that as much anymore. In fact, when I went through my divorce, none of my kids wanted my china, and I didn't want my grandma's china when she died, because we're just living very differently. So you want to document and preserve. Okay. So I know got a lot in there. Here's another way you can get yes. Sorry, before you get to read that. So this mask that I'm holding in my hand was one of the things that I had kept from my childhood. And my stepfather came to me and he said, you need to clear out your room. I'm not keeping it here anymore. You're an adult. You have your own house. So I took a duffel bag of my stuff with me from my old room back to Florida, back to California, and to share it with my children. And of course, they didn't want it either, but hopefully you're laughing. Like I said, it's a little harder for me to do this when I'm not face to face with you. I'm really funny in person. If you ever want to have me back, I'd love to do the do you own your stuff talk. Okay, so gaining momentum. Okay, so whatever you decide to do, you need to pick something that's going to work for you, that you're going to be motivated to do. And I also recommend that you start with having a reward or that goal, and that will help with the momentum. So when you are discarding things, you need to think about the utility and the functionality, your emotional attachment, the frequency of use. Is it something that you can store safely? And again, how does the item make you feel? You feel good? All right. You also need to consider your space constraints. How many of those items do you have? When you gather things together, you're going to see what you really have, and then you'll be super surprised. And yes, that picture was a plant that I held on to far too long. What is the condition of that item? And then, is it something that you are really going to use, or is it something that you just think you're going to use, or, the intentions behind it? Again, evaluate clothing. And yes, you can donate torn and stained things. And then also considering paperwork or documents. There's a rule that you really don't need to keep anything related to taxes unless you own a business past 7 years. There are certain paperwork that you do want to keep, but I'm amazed when I go into our client's home, how many times we see just boxes and boxes of paperwork that they don't need. That's so far back. There is actually a great place in Mira Mesa where you can take a banker's box full of shredding, and you can either ask them to shred it in front of you. And if you ask them to shred it in front of you, it's like $8.50 a box. And if you just drop it off, it's like $6.50, and then they charge you $1 for the banker's box. And then there's also shredding events that you can go to, but you don't need to be holding on to all of that paperwork. And then when you're also going through items, will anyone be happier because I saved it? Yes, that was my retainer. I had kept it because I thought that if I put it back in my mouth, my teeth would shift back into place. And eventually I did let it go. I also want to share with you that you can save just as much of the memory by photographing something and as you can by holding on to the item. Like I did let go of my Girl Scout sash. None of my kids wanted it, and it gives me a lot of joy just to show it. And I don't need to have the physical item. And then like the prom corsage, do you think any of my kids would have been happier because I kept that prom corsage? And then just to throw a little joke in for you, and I wish I could get the laughs, but I call it a tequila box. And in Swedish death cleaning, when I talk about that, I say, how many of you have something that you might not want found? And if you were to put it into a box and you said, please don't open it, you would have family members who would open it anyway. Anybody besides me? No one. Okay, thank you. Ronice, you are the MVP of the day. Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, if you are like me and you think that people would totally ignore your do not open box, then what you do is you wrap a bottle of tequila in the box with a note around it that said, I did ask you not to open it, but if you're going to, I hope that you will have a good laugh on me. I'm going to just check the chat and see if there are any questions I need to take on right now. Okay. Okay, so I got a question about China and silver. So there is a website called replacements.com that's also going to be on the handout that I have. They will often buy China and crystal, and I would say of the places here in San Diego that will take China and crystal, the Arc is if you've got really, really good stuff, they'll take it, and sometimes Country Friends, but they are inundated. So you can also do different craft projects. You can make, I've seen people make a plate stand where they turned a teacup over and they glued a plate on top of it, and they made it as a cake stand. I've also heard of people who took pieces, maybe they have 4 different sets of china, since we're not getting a lot of value from it anyway, and you can take 4 from each set and then mix and match and have fun with it, because we don't need the big servings. But obviously if you have family members that want it, that's great. It was not the case when I was letting go of my china and crystal. Okay, next, let me try to get on to the next slide. Okay, eliminate damaged and broken items. And then the 80-20 rule is another really good one that applies. And I will, when I'm in front of an audience, I'll say, okay, how many of you make coffee every day? And we'll try to use the same coffee cup. You'll wash it out and you'll use it more than 2 or 3 times a week. That's sort of an example of the 80-20 rule, that we use 80% of what we have 20% of the time. Did I get that right? No. I think it flip it around. Sorry about that. Like I said, I'm trying to cover a lot in a short time. The 10-minute tango is definitely one I wanted to mention to you. It's when I do this presentation and I ask people to take an item away that they're going to do, this is usually the one they pick. So the 10-minute tango is, again, you've scheduled your donation pickup. Every day you're going to commit to 10 minutes. You're going to set your timer. You're going to have 2 trash bags, and make sure they're different colors or you'll get confused. So you have 1 trash bag for trash. You have 1 trash bag for donations, and you just set your timer and you go. And by the end of the week, you will have made an impact. And what's nice about that 10 minutes is you can do almost anything for 10 minutes. So that's a great one. And then another one that I told people to do during the pandemic was to go ahead and clear out your belongings from like a nightstand or a dresser, take it all out, and then only put back what you're actually using. And that's another super easy way to declutter, whether you've got to move in your future or you just want to downsize and declutter so that your home feels a little bit easier. But again, because this was 6 months to downsizing, I did just want to highlight a few things about if a move is in your future, because I imagine we're going to have a mixture of both in this group, the people that are considering a move. And I just wanted to let you know that there are things that a lot of people who haven't sold a house don't know is available. So most people know about the traditional home sale where you put the house on the market. We will usually go in and declutter for somebody, and like a house gets on the market and it goes a traditional way. But there's also something called the renovate to sell and the as is certain sale. And I want to cover all of those for you just so you're aware. And all of those, the realtors that we work with that provide these will provide free move management services from my company. So the traditional sale, we'll go in, we declutter the house, and we get it ready for photos. So we don't really bring much in. We just use what you have, and that's a traditional sale, and we don't change anything. I missed a slide. Where did it get moved? Oh, okay, it's there. The as is certain sale. This is a situation when you have to sell quickly. You have a lot of deferred maintenance on the house. You don't want people coming in and out. We can basically bring in multiple investors, and we'll get multiple offers. And that's different than those home buying programs that are out there. You need to be careful of those, because those home buying programs that are out there, they're not shopping it around. They are going to be the person that comes in and buys it and keep the commission and put the house on the market. So you're not going to get your best price. We had a client that we were working with, one of the realtors, and he already had a good offer in his hand. He thought it was great because it was a lot more than he thought his house was worth. We said, just give us a weekend in San Diego. Let us see what we can get. And we ended up getting him $150,000 more than that offer was. So I just like to make sure people know that that's out there. And then I really like this option. It's the renovate to sell. And there are people who will basically come in and they will fix the house up. The amount of money that it costs to fix the house up comes out of the proceeds of the house, but you can usually get a lot more money. Not this next picture, but we had a client that they put their house on the market the traditional way. We got no offers. We renovated it and they got 3. It makes a big, big difference. And you end up making a lot more money, even though the house has to be renovated. The downside is you do have to move out, but this is great for somebody who is going to a senior community or doesn't need the money to buy something else at the moment. And the other thing is, it's really important if you are planning to move that we start with the floor plan, because you need to have a realistic idea of what's going to fit. Another thing I tell people is that just because it was a dining room hutch in one room doesn't mean it can't be a TV stand in another place. So be thinking about, the furniture can take on a different life in a different room. And then another good one to use is called the dining room table test, where you select your favorite items, you put them on one dining room table, and you figure out exactly what you would keep. And then as you put things in, you take things away. And that's another good way to break it down. So here's a resource overview. People always say that, I paid X number of dollars for something, and they think that they should get that. And what I tell people is there are a couple ways to research it. First, look up what the items are selling for on eBay. Don't look up what they are listed for, look up what they sell for. You can also use an app called Google Lens, and Google Lens is something where you can take a picture of it, and then you can get an idea of where you can buy it and what you could buy it for. It's a great app. Google is just amazing. I don't work for them, but they have got their stuff dialed down. And then the other thing is that people will say, oh, I spent $10,000 for this. And I'm like, but you spent $10,000 for it 20 years ago. You have to depreciate the item. All right, so I want to tell you what's popular for resale here. A lot of people don't understand why their brown furniture, people don't want it, their big brown furniture. And what I tell you to do is go out and look at what you're seeing in the stores. You're not seeing the big brown stuff right now. You're seeing the mid-century modern. You're seeing the clean lines, the smaller pieces. You're seeing vintage, a lot of vintage 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. If it's really kitschy, plant stands, novelty items like cookie jars, those kind of things, trending clothing, that's going to sell. But the antiques and the big other stuff is not going. So when we work with a client, we really, like I said, we put together a puzzle, and there are a couple of resources that I want to share with you. So this is actually dated. You're going to have a new one that's 3 pages. It's your guide to right sizing. And it's going to have the different apps that you can use. It gives you an overview on estate sales, garage sales, liquidation. I didn't cover, but I should have, that we do a lot of online auctions, which is sort of like an estate sale, but what we do is we catalog the whole house. We put it online. It's about half the life of an estate sale. And then everybody comes in on a Saturday morning and they pick up whatever they've already purchased. So anybody who's coming into your home has already made that purchase. If it's the resource is called Max Sold, it's going to be on that list. If you send me your email, I will, or however we'll work it out, but I can get that to you. We can also do seller assisted. If you want to do your own online auction or bring us in, we can either help you set it up and do it and be there for the pickup day, or you can do it all on your own. but I think I covered the majority of the things here. And then this is that 6 month to moving checklist. So this is going to be another resource that I can provide for you. I just wanted to give you a good high level overview of, what you need to consider. And I have these resources available that I can email. And then let me just recap to plan for success is, how do you want to feel in your home? How do you feel now? What are the areas that are causing you the most stress? Know how much time you're willing to devote to taking this on. Maybe it's just the 10-minute tango and you do 10 minutes a day, and then give yourself a reward. You've got to build rewards in, because that helps us because my guess is that the majority of you on this call have a project that you've been putting off or you wouldn't have taken the time to be here. So with that said, I would love to open the floor up to questions, and I'm going to turn the screen off. I do want to mention that if you know of someone who might need our services, maybe you don't, we do provide a free 3-hour downsizing session when you refer someone to us. And all you need to do is just call us up and let us know that you have a friend or, a family member. And also, if you mentioned that you were on this talk and you just call us to register your name, when you are ready for our services, we'll give you 10% off. So that's a little incentive. So if you want to take my information, there it is. And we can offer resources. And then also, I don't know how it works for me to send the resources out. What I like to do is capture the names and then send it out. So I have to figure that out. But those 3 things were available. Well, the 2 things, the 6-month guide and the right sizing guide. So I'm going to stop my share right now and see if anybody has any questions. I'm going to open up the chat and take a sip of water because now I've, talked a lot. Okay.